Good evening from New York. The man who once said every year when the Supreme Court resumed its sessions he got an intellectual lobotomy is now safe at last, and a president gets to start picking a new justice just 102 days into his term. Our fifth story on the countdown, Supreme Court Justice David Souter announces his retirement. This as there is a significant public correcting of the record by a salesman for an issue upon which the new justice might someday have to vote: governmental torture. Justice Souter's decision to retire at the end of the current term in June 1st. It broke nearly 24 hours ago. It finally became official when the president himself made a surprise visit to the daily briefing of his press secretary at the White House. Mr. Obama having just spoken with Justice Souter about his decision, praising his service, noting that the justice held no particular ideology, nor had he sought to promote a political agenda.
Now, the process of selecting someone to replace Justice Souter is among my most serious responsibilities as president. So I will seek somebody with a sharp and independent mind and a record of excellence and integrity. I will seek someone who understands that justice isn't about some abstract legal theory or footnote in a casebook. It is also about how our laws affect the daily realities of people's lives, whether they can make a living and care for their families, whether they feel safe in their homes and welcome in their own nation. I view that quality of empathy, of understanding and identifying with people's hopes and struggles as an essential ingredient for arriving at just decisions and outcomes.
Justice Souter had sent a brief letter to the president announcing his intent to retire, quote, when the court rises for its summer recess. Souter, still a comparatively young justice, one of the youngest now at 69, was nominated by the first President Bush in 1990. He became one of the more consistently liberal justices, at least by the standards of the court, so his replacement may not alter the basic composition of that court at all. And the president promised to consult with members of both parties in his search, but that has not stopped immediate reactions from interest groups, including those for and against a woman's right to choose, and those already accusing the president of preparing to nominate an activist judge. The president and close aides have reportedly been preparing for months to fill a vacancy on the court, and there's been plenty of speculation about the short list. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the sole woman on the bench, has pointedly said that one is not enough, and if President Obama agrees, he has multiple appeals court justices from which to choose, some of whom are also Hispanic, like Judge Sonia Sotomayor from the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, or Kim McLean Wardlaw, who's a judge on the liberal Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. But the president has also indicated, particularly during the campaign, that what he called life experience is a plus, so he might look outside appellate courts, which is the provenance of all 9 current Supreme Court justices, including the Chief Justice. The president wants the new justice seated when the court's new term begins next October. For more on this, let's call in the Washington correspondent of the New Yorker magazine, Ryan Lizza. Thank you for your time tonight, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me, Keith.
Is it possible we won't see the Republicans pick as big a fight here as might be first expected, that they're anticipating they'd lose it anyway, and whatever political capital they would have might better be spent elsewhere? Or to serve their base, do they have to have at least the appearance of a brawl?
Well, I think it's your latter point. They have to have a brawl. It's very important to the conservative base. There's almost no issue that's more important than the Supreme Court. And so there'll be a battle no matter what, even though the math looks very grim right now in the Senate for them. They can achieve a couple of goals with a big Supreme Court battle. One, they can use whoever Obama picks to try and define Obama, ideologically in a negative way, define him more liberal than the American people believe he is right now. And they can also use it to tie him up politically for a little bit. Obama's got a big, ambitious agenda this year, and every day spent on a Supreme Court nominee that, because of the math in the Senate, is likely to be voted in, is one day not spent on passing a complicated health care plan or a controversial cap-and-trade plan. So, I don't know if they're necessarily, had all that excited about this in the White House. It adds one other big issue to the agenda for them.
Who is in charge of this inside the White House? Is the president assembling the short list himself, or who'd be the point man on this?
Well, it's funny. There was the White House has pointed out today and told me just this evening that this process started during the transition and even before that. Remember, the Obama team had a transition team set up even during the general election, and they had sort of the best legal minds in the Democratic Party coming up with names, vetting candidates. Now, it was reported this week, it was reported today, that Joe Biden has given a list to the president. A White House official tonight told me that that's not the case, and it was very, very pointedly noted that this is not a Biden process, that this is a process that will be run basically outside of out of the White House counsel's office, in other words, which is run by Greg Craig.
And if the vice president had a list, it also might already include 5 people who are already on the court. But I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Were there hints in the president's remarks tonight? Did we get any indicator? Did he give any? Was there a tell in there anywhere about what he's looking for?
I don't think too much. You know, you could point to most of the names out there, and they sort of are in line with what he said. I think the issue the Democratic president has is that your normal place to go for a Supreme Court nominee would be the appellate court, and you'd look for a jurist that was appointed by the last Democratic president. Now, if you actually look at who's on the appellate court, democratically Clinton appointees, they tend to be a little bit older on average. And this pick really is a chance to put someone young in there. We all agree that whoever it's going to be is ideologically not going to be that different than Souter, but they're going to be younger. So you don't get an extra vote on the court, but you get a lot of years. So because it's been 8 years since we've had a Democratic president, and because a lot of Clinton's appointees are sort of up there in age, it's a sort of slim bench that Obama has to choose from.
And Justice Ginsburg's point, 1 out of 9 is not exactly close. 2 out of 9 is not exactly close, but it'd be a little bit better. Is it likely to be a woman?
I mean, look, just judging by everything that's been said today, it seems very clear that they would want to go in that direction. We should be cautious about how certain we are about these things. Often the early conventional wisdom is wrong about these things, but I think it's more than likely that it will be a woman.
Ryan Lizza of The New Yorker helping us try to figure this out as it breaks around us. Great, thanks for your time tonight, sir. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Keith.